time, weather.
Now for the Forge Podcast. Question for you. What's the power of your testimony if it's never shared? This is the Forge Podcast.
The ministry of Scottsdale Bible Church. What's your role at SBC? What are you stepping into? What brings you here?
Yeah. So I'm the
your name?
Yeah, I'm Aaron Hughes. I'm the men's and marriage pastor for the Tempe campus, which has started, but the building's not ready. So we're not there in Tempe yet. Yeah. So I've been in Arizona for like 6 weeks, and
oh wow.
And I've been in the U.S. Or back in the U.S. I should say, since July. So 2 months and a half. So we just moved from Sweden here, I guess is the short way to say that.
So how'd you get to Dallas for the, I don't know if it was would you say career fair?
Yeah. So I studied at Dallas. I did a degree that should be a 4-year degree, but I spread it out to 7 years.
Okay.
And
like Tommy Boy?
Huh? Tommy, yeah, I guess not.
They're called doctors.
not Tommy Boy. Good.
Sorry, dude.
No, I think just seeing the heart that Scottsdale Bible has for the Bible, seeing the generosity among the staff. I remember sitting at lunch with Michael Tooker and with Jason and Joel, and watching the way that Michael held up Jason and Joel, the people who he supervises, and I thought, wow, that's a beautiful church culture. I'd love to be a part of something like that. So,
well, welcome, man.
Yeah,
good to have you. Good to have you on the podcast. What are you looking forward to down in Tempe?
Oh, man, I'm looking forward to the university. I'm looking forward to. It's a diverse place, like 1 million people, and there's a huge Mormon population. It's ethnically diverse. There's different, different levels of wealth and poverty. And then you have the university that draws people in Tempe. So, what does a Forge look like that has men from all these different groups coming together? What is it? I think it's an exciting place to look like the church. Like the early church, when people walked in the door, they were struck. They were struck by what the gospel had done, where it had brought people together from rich and poor. Like what's going on? Here's a table. And people are eating, and there's women and men and rich and poor, slave and masters, different ethnicities. They knew, like, from the get-go, something different's going on here.
Right.
And I think there's something of that could happen in the East Valley,
Yeah. You have kids?
2 kids. I have an 8-year-old, August, and a 6-year-old, Margot. Yeah.
Nice.
Which August, we August is a really normal Swedish name, but we realized when we came back here, it's a little bit of an edgy American name, so, or maybe not as normal. Maybe it's not as edgy.
In the last decade, we've gotten into people wanting not the traditional names. So, I don't blink twice at it. It's like, oh, what a cool name.
August is the name in Sweden that all the old people in our church would be like, oh, I had a grandpa that died a few years back named August, and now it's come back around.
Would his nickname be Augie?
Yeah, I call him Augie. We have a friend that calls him Augie the Big Doggy. All kinds of stuff. Auganator.
So with Campus Crusade for Christ, was there a lot of outreach? What was your role with them
in Sweden?
Yeah. Is that an outreach base? I haven't been involved, or I haven't had friends involved since high school, and that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I'm not really, I don't remember everything that it does.
The heart of it, they'll say, is win, build, send. So they want to win people to Christ, build them up in their faith, and send them out to reach others. So like when we first landed in Sweden, most of our days are like go meet someone, have a cup of coffee, have lunch, do surveys to kind of. So Sweden is so post-Christian that for a lot of people, they don't know where they would have the big conversations in life. If you said, hey, is it important to talk about God, purpose, meaning, death, life? They'd say, yeah, sure. And you say, okay, well, where do you talk about that? And we say, well, I don't go to church. I don't go to a mosque. You don't talk about that over like Christmas dinner or at school or at work. So one of the things we would do is we just open up places where we'd say, hey, we genuinely want to know what you think.
Yeah.
We genuinely want to ask you questions. And this is a place where you can think. Like you can have an opinion and change it in a few moments. And you can say, I don't know. And a lot of them, it's hard to imagine. But I mean, we would have people who would be like, yeah, I think I'm a Christian and I don't believe in a God. And they would sit there and they would kind of go, yeah, that's me. And it wasn't until you said, okay, like, do you see how these might not match so well? And they'd go, oh, okay, I haven't thought about that. And they'd, reshuffle the
So
question.
what was your first reaction to going from the United States to a post-Christian country? What was that like? Were you shocked, or were you like, oh, this is the mission field? Like, were you just prepared for it?
Well, okay, so the weird thing is when you go, so I spent a summer in China, and when you land in China, you immediately are like, I'm not in America. I mean, it smells different, it looks different,
Right.
There's different food. When you land in Sweden, you don't really feel that. I mean,
Okay.
they look similar to us. They may be a little bit more stylish. So when you first land, it's kind of surreal. You know you're in someplace different, but I mean, it only took you a few hours to get there. But I think when I first came, I was expecting a lot of like Richard Dawkins. Like, everyone's going to be kind of angry, antagonistic, and anti-Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, so I was kind of like apologetic up for the discussion, the debate. And I think once I got on the ground and started interacting with people, you realize that most people don't care. I mean, it would be like if you showed up to an ASU football game and wanted to talk about rugby or cricket. People would be like, that's not important. At least it's not important here. Why would we just don't care? So I think initially I was loaded and I really wanted to have these discussions. I really wanted to argue, for better or worse. And then you're met with people who really don't care, and you go, okay, like, what do I do? How do I love someone who doesn't care to have this discussion? How do I love someone who, they don't want to debate whether or not God exists. They don't think it matters. But I don't have, those are still the people in front of me that I'm going to spend time with and try to figure out how to love. So that probably took me a year or two to just make that shift.
So after you left, what had changed in you over that period of time that you're like, what was your mode of operation? How, after that year and a half, 2-3 years after you realized, okay, what was your approach?
At first I was kind of paralyzed because I realized, like,
You were prepared for one thing.
I was prepared for one thing. It wasn't that. And I think I went in, I mean, I was 22 when I got there.
Yeah.
And so I think I landed, on fire for the Lord. I'd been a Christian for about 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And so I was ready to go. And then it just didn't happen like I thought it was going to happen. And I think I was quite ignorant of all the like social lines and how people do things. I was quite critical. And after a couple years, I started to see, okay, like, Swedes don't talk this way. Swedes don't ask this question. Swedes don't say this in this situation. And it became quite paralyzing of like, okay, what can I do? When is the appropriate time? And so if I came in kind of hot and ready to go and then became really like kind of paralyzed, it took a while to kind of like level out and find a place where it's like, okay, I know how to push when I need to push. I know how to not push too far, so I'm going to shut this conversation down, and or at least I got better at that.
Did you learn where the disinterest came from? Where that they're like, we just don't care. When did it stop being? Was it 400 years ago, 300, 200, 100 years ago, 50 years ago?
So Sweden is Roman Catholic up until the Reformation, and then in the Reformation, it's really a political move. The king decides that, hey, if we become Protestant, I own the land and all the money, and I'm not sending stuff to the Roman Catholic Church. So they don't have a Reformation that looks like Luther, that looks like Calvin, that's so principle theological based. And then they are, like, you're required by law to be a member of a church until, I think, 1951. So, I mean, up until 1951, I don't think it made sense to ask your neighbor, what do you believe? Of course they're Christian.
That's right. You said that the other day, last week from the stage.
Yeah. Like, they're just Christian. There's no It wouldn't. I mean, it doesn't make sense. The law says they have to be a member of a church. Everyone's baptized as an infant. There's not a conversation, and they're pretty like monoculture. They're all Swedes. It's not multicultural like the U.S. is. So then, I think from 1950 to today, Sweden's become richer and richer and richer, more comfortable, and the membership in the state churches just kind of slowly tricked down, but it's still like 60-something% are members of the state church.
So what happened in 1950?
1950 was when they said you don't have to legally be a member
Okay.
of a church. So for the first time, you could have a Swedish citizen who on paper wasn't affiliated with a church. But of course, hearts didn't change so much from 1950 to 1951. So I mean, I think most Swedes would say, "Hey, we're healthy, we're wealthy, we got a great social welfare system, great education. Why do we need God?" And they would say that when I first got. They would say, "I think God and religion is for people who are broken and needy, and we're just not that." Which kind of offended me when I first got there. I think later on I was like, that is true. God is for people who are broken. I just now realize that all of us are broken. There's not wealthy people who aren't broken, and then all the rest of us who are. Yeah.
What were some of the things that brought them to that realization that they did need God? Because if their financial status didn't change, if their health didn't change, what were some of those things that you noticed that were able to soften their hearts?
When we first got there, we thought, well, we really want to be strategic, so we'll go after how can we find the leaders in the university, which isn't necessarily bad, but the leaders in the university are the people from Stockholm. They're very wealthy. They are studying law. They're going to get a great job. They're 6'4" and blonde haired and blue eyed and just they're slick, and for someone like that in the middle of they're 22, 23, 24, life seems really, really good for a lot of them. And now maybe not for all of them, but for a lot of them, life does seem really good. And I think sometimes you could journey with those people and you could say, hey, here goes, I see emptiness in your life. Maybe they'd open up and they'd say something. But maybe for some of them it was a matter of time, where it's like, hey, yeah, like you're in your early 20s and you're going to university, you don't have much responsibility, you don't have kids or a spouse. Life feels really good, but those things will come. Life will turn. You will hit hard times. So some of that I think was also journeying with a person and being trustworthy enough to where they would say, they would open up their life and you could go, oh, like you do really have pain points. They're just not as visible. You hide them or you don't know about them, But then, I mean,
is that culture wide? Like, would you say they're really good at masking the issues?
I think
they're not allowed. They don't have the freedom to show them. That shows weakness.
Someone told me when we first moved there, they said, Americans, you guys are kind of like peaches. If someone squeezes you, everything just comes out. And there's this little pit that's left, but everything comes out. And it's true. I mean, I can go to Target today and, in the time it takes me to check out, I can learn that the person they're checking me out is on their second marriage and used to have a drug problem. And it's like, I don't know you. You don't know me, but you're like a peach.
Right.
I'd say Swedes, they're more like coconuts. You pound away for a couple years, and then finally they open up. I think to them, what we as Americans feel like is friendly.
So is that? Would you equate that to just being calloused for 500 years of the regiment of religion, the legal aspect of you have to at least you're a Christian by law, and I mean that just calluses you over the year. Like it means absolutely nothing because my great grandparents were great grandparents parents. There was nothing. There was absolutely no fruit. And I think the heart can just callous more and more and turn you into a coconut.
Yeah, and I mean...
Or is that not?
Well, I think the coconut thing is just a cultural thing where... And I can understand it too. I mean, they would see us as Americans as as shallow, where I could meet someone, we could have a connection. I could say, hey, let's get together. And I don't really mean pull out your calendar. I know I don't mean that, and they know I don't mean that. I'm just saying, hey, I like you, and we'll see what happens. And if we never talk again and we just kind of go through life and ignore like we ever met each other, we're fine with that. Whereas they would be like, that's odd. Why did you have that deep connection with that person and tell them you wanted to see them again, and then you didn't meet them? So I think for them,
they would consider that
they would
deep
consider
connection?
Americans as like,
no, that interaction they would consider as a deep connection.
no, I wouldn't. I don't think they'd say a deep connection, but they would just say you said things that you don't really mean.
Okay.
Like we would have Americans show up on like a mission trip to us when we were in Sweden, and in like a day of interacting, they would be like, I love you guys. And there's part of me that's like, oh, they're being friendly, they're being nice, I get it. There's another part of me that's like, you don't love me. You met me yesterday. You don't really know me. And I think there's truth to both of those sides. I love being back.
Did that wear off? Did the Swedish culture, was that you your American your American self, or was that the culture of Sweden kind of, you were acclimating to it? You're like, and so you caught yourself saying, whoa, what are you talking about?
I think it's some of both, right? It's you know how in marriage, like in the beginning of marriage, you'll look at your partner and there's some things you understand and there's some things you're just like, that is weird. I don't know why you would ever see it that way. But then over time, it almost becomes this sixth sense where you can say, in this situation, I would never think this, but I know my wife and she would think this. Mm-hmm. She might react this way. It almost is that kind of way where it's like, okay, in a situation, how would a Swede react? And I spent so many years wondering that and asking that and getting to know them, that now it's like, okay, I know how I might see this interaction, but I also kind of know how they might see it.
Right.
And I guess part of like a missionary's job too is to figure out how to take one hat off and put another hat on, and not to, you would often say some things are right, some things are wrong, and some things they're just different. And maybe the coconut peach thing, I like peaches. I mean, I like actual peaches that you can't get in Sweden, but I love being able to go to Target and talk to people.
Yeah.
But it's not wrong necessarily for a Swede to be like, no, I don't need to be best friends with the person at Target. It's like, yeah, that's true. They would struggle in America maybe though.
Can you boil your years over there down to, like, your experience, what you walk with? Can you boil that down to 3-4 minutes?
I'd say one of the big questions I had is, okay, if you are healthy and wealthy and you kind of have this seemingly perfect life, is Christ still of real value? I knew that if when I went to China, I was taller and wealthier than most people, and their country, you saw much more poverty. So it's like I had a lot as an American to kind of bring and say, hey, look at our whole culture. Mm-hmm. With Sweden, it was like all of those things were eradicated. All I really had was to say, hey, you need Christ. I don't know that you need you don't need our wealth and all these other things, So I think Christ became much more real. It became much more clear of like, this is what the gospel is. When I became a Christian in university, I came into this group of people and I was like, okay, they read their Bible in the morning. I'm going to read my Bible in the morning. They talk this way to other people. I'm going to talk that way. They date this way. I'm going to date that way. I'm going to pick up all of it. And it took me it took that decade and a half in Sweden to kind of go, okay, what parts of that were Southern culture or American culture or early 2000 culture, and what part of that was Christian? What part of that was, what part of that was actually following Christ? Because I don't need to give Sweden, early 2000 culture or Southern culture or American culture, but I do need to give them Christ. So how do I do that? So maybe that's a cooking down of that time. Yeah.
The first thing that came to mind when you were talking about it being a difficult nut to crack, if you will, is the SBC slogan, get God, get real, and get out there. And that it seemed to mirror what I think you eventually learned was get out there and get in relationships with
Yep.
people. And when you're in relationship with people, all of a sudden, naturally, they start to open up, and you start to see the cracks. And you are there living your life as example, so that when, not if, when it hits the fan, or when there's a crack, or when they don't know, you're there with that answer. And I would assume that's what you walked away with, is understanding the relational aspect of the gospel.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, like, yeah, there's something that happens when you, I think it broke down evangelism. I had this interesting interaction one time with this guy. We were playing volleyball. We were in the locker room afterwards, and he had asked me, what were we doing earlier that day? And we said, well, we were out on campus at the university in Uppsala, talking to people about Jesus. And he said, this guy's a Christian. He said, oh, that's so good. That's so good. I just can't do that, but that's so good that you guys can do it. And I kind of pushed him a little bit, and it didn't really go anywhere. But I thought about it later, and I thought, it's interesting. Sometimes we have this view of evangelism, like, non-Christians really hate this, and Christians also, they really hate doing this too, but God loves it. And I think over my time in Sweden, I thought, man, that's probably a good sign that we're doing evangelism wrong. If no one likes it but God, we probably have gotten something wrong. We probably are thinking about something that happens in a moment that's kind of manipulative or pushy, where I have an agenda and I miss the person, as opposed to like a cup of coffee, another human. I know Jesus and I want you to meet Jesus, but I don't have a plan for your life. I don't have a
Right.
I don't know what I'm going to get to know you, and I hope you get to know Jesus through me. I hope I'm an example of someone that walks with Jesus, meaning that you also get to see me screw up and repent and not know answers to questions and all that.
When you were talking, my first thought was we're salesmen. Like I don't like being sold.
No.
And I don't like selling.
No.
I tried doing it as a kid with my dad. I'm like, I hate this.
Right.
And maybe it's like real-time revelation that maybe I think of evangelism as trying to sell somebody, and I'm not good at that. I am terrible at it.
No.
What I am good at is listening.
Yep.
And walking with somebody and pursuing here and there, and then I've seen fruit of that. I've seen when something goes bad, they reach out, or they finally answer one of those texts and say, man, things are going real bad, real quick. Can we get together?
Yeah. And I think for guys, right, like if you're a salesman, then whether or not this other person becomes a Christian, it's based on like, did you have a good pitch?
Right.
Did you know the answers?
Right.
Like, are you competent and winsome? And whereas if it's like, hey, this is actually going to be based on you listening, living life with this person, maybe being willing to like go to some awkward party so you can learn that their dad's a jerk.
Right.
Then suddenly now you're hitting on all these things that we as guys struggle with, of like authenticity and emotions and listening and saying I don't know, I'm incompetent here.
Yeah.
So I mean, it taught me a lot about how to do evangelism, how not to do evangelism.
Yeah.
And how to make it, how to realize how fun it could be to sit down with another person and disagree. I mean, I love a good disagreement, but with love, where it's like
I loved you said, and I landed there and I was ready to argue.
Yeah, I mean, I was.
Like yeah. I like that.
I mean, I love apologetics, but sometimes I think that's what we view as evangelism. And, there was this one time this guy invited me to go in 2010, Sweden and all of Europe had this immigration crisis where a bunch of people came in from Syria, from Afghanistan, but also from like the Romani people, like what we'd normally call gypsies. And there was a group of them homeless in Sweden. And a guy said, hey, would you come do a Bible study for them? And I mean, I'd been hanging out with university students and reading apologetics books. And I landed with these people where it's like they never have finished, I don't know if they finished middle school. Suddenly I realized how inept I was at like just communicating a basic gospel, sitting with people. I was ready to put together an argument, a logical progression. Right. And it was a horrible Bible study for them. It didn't make any sense, and it was supposed to be translated into Italian, and but it was good for me to learn.
I took apologetics in college, I'm like, it was how to argue other religions. I'm like, I don't want to argue with other people. Like, I remember that reaction. I'm like, okay, this is interesting information to learn about other religions, but I'm not a good arguer. I'm terrible at it. So I did not gravitate towards apologetics.
Well, and again, if you're at the ASU game and everyone's ready to go in and watch kickoff, and you come up to someone and you say, "Hey, I want to tell you why, like, cricket's a really great sport," and they're going, "I don't care. You're at the wrong place.
Right.
That doesn't matter here." And you go, "No, wait. I've got some good arguments. It doesn't change it."
Have you? I guess I have 30 seconds before I have to stop.
Okay.
Have you ever? This is my thing. Have you ever seen anybody in that argument say, "Yep, you're right. I'm dropping all of mine and I'm coming to your side"? I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but that other person probably likes to argue too, or likes to make their point and is beholden to their thoughts, their theologies, the things that have formed them, that they're not going to give up either. So if it's done as an exercise and you enjoy doing it, great. But our souls really, it's like the guy in the corner with the bullhorn. Repent. I'm sure some people have given their life because of that. Right person, right time, right spot. Heard it. Yes. Okay. Has it ever worked with apologetics? Have you ever seen that?
30. How much time do I have to answer this now?
Thank you for listening to the Forge Podcast.